I like this chapter a lot. This was a really good chapter. It was actually one of the best chapters in a really long time. This chapter reminded me how long it's been since it's been an exciting chapter. Honestly, well, 227 when Chizuru and Kazuya kissed back at the Paradise Hall. I was hyped. Especially in the other scene when they were finna reunite after everything was said and done. But Reiji completely just that was shit. The fact that she said she did it because he literally Reiji restarted the whole entire status quo all over again right after that. Absolutely ridiculous. I did not think that was even possible, yet he did it anyway. What the flying fuck, Reiji? Goddamn. Regardless, Longfish said it perfectly, but about that chapter, and I think I've done a review on it. I don't remember if I did or not. Doesn't matter, because this chapter 235 is actually pretty alright. Longfish makes a pretty good case on why it's not particularly all that great, because it makes a couple steps back. Well, the focus on Chizuru and her state of mind is particularly it's in the wrong place. A lot of things don't add up from his perspective. Anyway, from my feelings on it, Minnie made she spoke the truth. Not only spoke the truth, but Minnie spoke some sense into Chizuru's head. She really needed it too. She said pretty much everything everybody's been feeling, and Minnie May, she's amazing. She's great. She was fantastic in this chapter. Minnie May spoke some sense into Chizuru, and it actually helped greatly. It actually solved a lot of problems with her, at least hopefully, because next chapter, hopefully she actually makes some good. She actually gets up, and mans up, and actually talks to Kazuya or does something. At least hopefully. Minnie May, holy cow, she's too good for this series. Yeah, the main focus of this chapter was pretty good. Minnie May, man, she did exactly what I wanted her to do, and she exceeded my expectations. She did not disappoint, and I'm happy, really am. Either way, this week Chizuru explained herself. Satisfying as that was, I want to focus on two important prongs of Chizuru's state of mind. Yeah, she explained herself in this chapter. It actually got me scratching my head on a couple things, but Longfish here explains it. So let's get to that. That she would be trampling on Ruka's feelings, that she had acted unprofessionally. What's so notable to me is that these ideas basically do not exist before a certain point in the manga. The fact that she's so concerned about Ruka's feelings is it makes sense, but it's also pretty bizarre at the same time. Let's look here. What was there before Chizuru's jealousy? Chizuru has long been jealous of Kazuya and Ruka's relationship. She distanced herself from him after telling him to go out with Ruka. She distanced herself again when she thought he slept with Ruka. And then she did it again when Ruka tried it again. We have seen her more than once looking on as Ruka hangs over Kazuya in 186, and Chizuru has all but admitted she desires that kind of closeness. Speaking Kazuya's name without honoring a refix to herself 144, just as Ruka has done in front of her. Moreover, the idea that Ruka can do what Chizuru only wishes she could, both with Kazuya and in the vacuum, makes a lot of sense. Chizuru has a long struggle with expressing her feelings. But the Paradise Arc introduces two new dimensions to Chizuru's struggle that didn't exist before. Ruka has long tried to insert herself between Kazuya and Chizuru, such as with the movie of Tagging Along New Year's, but back then she would only insist that she was Kazuya's girlfriend, and that Chizuru as a winter should back off. Really, Chizuru knew him before Ruka did, which is kind of quite telling. But this time it's different. She explicitly brings that she's Kazuya's provisional girlfriend because of Chizuru, not just before the trip, but in their confrontation in the bathroom after Chizuru kissed him. Call this a desperate ploy of a tactic girl who has no other moves left. But it's notable that Ruka's new anger gets to Chizuru in a way that the second condom bluff did not. It explicitly one reason why Chizuru hesitates to answer Kazuya's feelings or to hear him out after coming back from Hawaiians. Mommy's repeated question, you're not playing favorites, are ya? This part we'll hear is about Chizuru's credibility as a rental and how professional she's been, and how Mommy keeps drilling that in one particular chapter, especially in 195. That's a bit of a simplification of what's being said here, but I really do not want to focus on that. So let's continue on to the next sentence in paragraph. Paradise brought Chizuru's enemies together to pressure her to accept the facts. In their own ways, Ruka and Mommy have pressured Chizuru to accept the truth that she always suppressed, that she never really wanted Kazuya to date Ruka and that everything she did was beyond professional. It is reckoning for Chizuru, one she did to distance herself, or perhaps for his sake. The other was partly for his sake and partly to state her appetite for companionship and affection. A hunger she could never fully satisfy this way. And paradise was what brought her there, brought her to this point. And in this way, I fairly fall short. While there's an underlying tension between Chizuru's wall professionalism and her personal desires, it's not as interesting of an angle to say that she feels guilty or exposed for having breached this professional wall so much for him. And at best it lets her see that she's already gone this far and there's no reason to cling to it any longer. But that's something that could have been dealt with at the show update. Similarly, the angle about potentially hurting Ruka while taking Kazuya selfishly for herself is not very interesting either. At least not from the angle about hurting Ruka. I agree with this. Ruka and Chizuru are not friends, so stopping her is one part altruism and one part hesitation for her own feelings. There's nothing intellectually interesting or emotionally compelling there. It's not, especially when Chizuru and Ruka's relationship hasn't really been all that close. He makes a comparison between Snafu with Yuri and Yukino. That's a good compelling romantic friendship between two girls that are in love with the same guy. But Chizuru and Ruka do not share such a compelling relationship whatsoever, so it's kind of falling on deaf ears here and doesn't have any weight to it. So the fact that she's so considerate of Ruka after all this time, I mean, it makes sense that she would be, but under this context and under these circumstances, it feels somewhat forced that she's been holding back because her feelings and not wanting to hurt Ruka. It's kind of annoying, really, and it's a little uncalled for and pretty weird. It's not weird, but it's just not interesting, like he said, and it feels somewhat forced. Like there should be there's plenty of other reasons too, but the fact that she used this as an excuse is kind of it's a little trifle. Maybe that's not the right word, but I'm going with that. At best, it's another excuse, and they're both excuses. I actually prefer that rather than take this Ruka issue at face value. Ultimately, this seems to lead toward Chizuru coming to terms with her desires and allow herself to embrace them. That's great, but the indirect way of getting there with angles that cropped up nearly out of nowhere feels like Miyajima forcing it to set up his own preferred image of this next storyline. Kazuya and Chizuru were in consideration, and that's a shame because the author forcing the story to bend towards a desired result like this often feels lacking. Kiss aside. None of this is what the audience wanted to see, and frankly, it's a surprise to me that either of those angles from Ruka Mami made any impact whatsoever. Chizuru hesitating because she doesn't understand her feelings? Sure, I 100% buy that, as do I, but Miyajima seems to want us to take these excuses involving Mami and Ruka seriously, correct? Based on how often Ruka and Mami hammered them. That I just cannot get behind. Another thing, Ruka and Mami are both intruding and enforcing themselves on to Chizuru and Kazuya. And it doesn't come across as because they care about him. It just comes across as them being pretty horrible fucking human beings. It's selfish, especially from Ruka's place. She's just being selfish, not really considering his feelings at all either. Like this Reddit post says, Miyajima used Ruka and Mami as crutches to force Chizuru from Kazuya. Now this comment was really good. I mentioned in the thread asking people about their opinions on the Paradise arc that I would have liked to have seen some early signs of her guilt and regret on her and Ruka acting unprofessional, but I didn't feel we get enough of that to really sell these excuses when she said them to Minnie. We got a lot of Ruka and Mami shouting her actions back in her face, but we rarely got what looked like an emotional reaction or response from Chizuru, just more shock that it was actually being said. I agree with this. I wish we got more drawings of her just looking downward and a little bit of emotional reaction from it, like she's seemingly hurt, bothered, conflicted, and like her, even a drawing of her just looking down and staring at the ground and some form of emotional distress or shock. And moments like that when they're throwing these accusations and their feelings towards her, at her, attacking her, it really would have set this chapter home. But like this guy said, I feel because of this, her reasoning sounds a bit hollow, and it's almost trying to sell her as a holy saint that only thinks of those external to the equation rather than herself and Kazuya. She is the kind of person who would rather suffer the consequences than let others face any discomfort. But at the moment, it felt like she was just spewing excuses for cover because she knows she needed to verbalize something to Minnie while she processes her feelings into action. Reiji has portrayed her as a bit of a bumbling fool recently throughout Paradise, and now seems to be trying to fast track her back to the image of a person in control. Yeah, I feel the timescale hasn't been kind to the narrative because it could have allowed us to see Chizuru come to terms with what she needs to be doing in her next step. Exactly. And when she finally gets Minnie, there's a sounding board. It could have been the cherry on top that made her move into action, but unfortunately we just got the end bit instead. Yeah, it feels like throughout these 3 months there was no development or growth of her character, which is bizarre and weird and very disappointing. And like you said, this chapter should have been the cherry on top for her to make a decision and take action, but instead this is actually it feels like this is the part that forces her to make a decision and force her hand. That's basically it. This mini chapter has really forced her hand pretty much, and that's quite disappointing because it feels forced and it's happening too fast, and it doesn't feel too convincing at all. It doesn't feel convincing all that much. I don't think it's completely hollow, but it is forced and it's being rushed. It feels like her characterization here. I do prefer Chizuru when she has a bit more determination behind her, but I feel like it's a bit too quick of a turnaround considering how the scene has been set. Yeah, 3 months, man. Holy cow. Either way, there's one more comment that's really good that needs to be read. I love this analysis and couldn't agree with it more. The only thing I want to add is that much of Chizuru's explanation revolved around Ruka, Kazuya's family, her sense of professionalism, and of course Mommy's manipulations. However, there was one person missing from her explanation, and that was Kazuya himself. I agree. Sure, they mentioned that he's depressed and discussed the overall state of their relationship and feelings towards each other, but Chizuru, strangely or maybe not, did not address him directly. How this was affecting him and how that contributed to her mindset or decision. Maybe this is a sign that she's still afraid of her feelings for him, since Chizuru outright admits to being just how Ruka casually owns her feelings while she cannot. It is strange that she never brought him up at all, especially not his emotions and feelings, despite how much this is loosely about him and her. But he says that particularly really well here. However, like many recent story developments, this inability to address Kazuya and meet him halfway just makes her look bad. Yes, it does. With so much emphasis given to Ruka, it comes across as she's saying that she can't bring herself to hurt her, but it's okay to hurt Kazuya. I know, she literally ghosted him for 3 months. What the flying fuck? What the fuck? You ghost Kazuya for 3 months. And throughout that whole entire freaking chapter, she did not bring up his feelings at all. That's really fucking shitty, and it does not make her look good at all. But like you said, but it's okay to hurt Kazuya, but not Ruka or any other. Yeah, and I'm sure she doesn't mean it that way, but that is literally the effect that her actions are having on him, which is bizarre to me. He's literally the other half of this relationship, and somehow they talked about him and not at the same time. But yeah, Chizuru's reasoning is really flawed, like one non said. I already talked about the difference in love between Ruka and Chizuru towards Kazuya and how Chizuru struggles to compare her own feelings to Ruka's. But to be honest, Ruka is one reason. The most important reason why Chizuru is still not Kazuya's girlfriend is that she isn't able to speak about her true feelings. This girl has problems to even admit that someone is a kind person. She even hides her happiness, as Sayuri was amazed about the film premiere. Being honest about her feelings is the core problem. Gladly. Many address exactly that. She knows that Chizuru's reasons are excuses if they are true to hide her feelings behind some logic. Chizuru didn't admit directly through words that she was in love with Kazuya, but she was aware that this is no use to hide them from Minnie because Minnie saw through her excuses. Minnie hit the bullseye in saying that Chizuru is making excuses and digging this out over and over, and it's sickening, really. What she said was necessary to hear. Everything. I think this arc and what's about to come for Chizuru development as a character. I hope our new Chizuru will be able to accept her own feelings and address Kazuya's desires in some way, but will it not be that easy for her? I'm not sure how she will reveal her feelings at some point, but the Chizuru we have seen so far was better in expressing her feelings through actions than through words. So, a kiss is more possible than a long talk. But let's see how far Chizuru would go, and whether or not her reasons, like Ruka, etc., would be that big of a deal. Ooh, he screwed me over with that wording there in his comment. But yeah, I do think Chizuru is better at expressing her feelings through her actions rather than her words, because she refuses to actually be upfront and direct and actually be transparent about how she feels about things. She's always so closed off and doesn't want to open herself up to anyone, let alone Kazuya. Kazuya is literally the closest thing for her, closest person she's able to be open with. Her grandmother, Kazuya, her grandmother, and Minnie now. Either way, yeah. Tell me what you think. I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm really looking forward to the next chapter. I really hope Reiji does not disappoint, and Chizuru actually mans up and saves Kazuya. She's the reason why he's so depressed anyway. She's hurting him really badly, so it's really fucked up that she's so concerned about Ruka's feelings. But look what she's doing by ghosting him for 3 months. I wonder what her answer to that next chapter is gonna be, or what she's gonna say to him. I wonder what excuse she's gonna have for that, because that's fucked up. Either way, thanks for watching.